indicators. Indicators are substances that change color when the pH changes. We can have different indicators that indicate acids. We have different indicators that indicate base. And so choosing an indicator for a titration is pretty important. Here's an example of the pH curve for the titration of 100 milliliters of 0.05 molar ammonia with 0.1 molar hydrochloric acid. Now, we haven't done one of these in class, but you'll notice that as a base, the first point that you see there, up by about 11, is the pH of the base. When you add the acid to it, you can see that the pH begins to decrease until the equivalence point, which is a little bit less than 6. When we choose an indicator to find the equivalence point, we would like to choose one whose color change happens around the equivalence point. And acid-base indicators, of course, marks the end point of a titration by changing color. The equivalence point is not necessarily the same as the end point, but they are ideally as close as possible. So here's an example of an indicator we often use with a strong acid and a strong base, because after a pH of 7, or a base, this particular indicator turns a bright pink, and that's, you can see the reaction right there. That's the phenolphthalein indicator. Methyl orange indicator is yellow in bases and it's red in acids, and so that might be a good titration indicator depending on what you're titrating. And finally, this helpful chart can tell us when colors are changing. In other words, for example, thymol blue, which is the third one down listed, you can see goes from kind of a reddish orange to yellow at a pH between 2 and 3. So anything after a pH of 3, thymol blue will remain yellow until it becomes to be a pH a little bit after 8, and then it becomes blue. Thus the name thymol blue. It wouldn't be a very good indicator name if it didn't turn blue at some point. That and alizaria are two examples of indicators that have two color changes. Most of these indicators just have one color change. So depending on where your end point is, you may choose a pH indicator that might indicate that end point. That is the end of this particular chapter. Now what we have to do is do lots and lots of practice. Lots of practice with buffers, lots of practice with acid-base indicators, and lots of practice with titration.